The journey from 5th tier to top flight is supposed to be reserved for video games, but it happened this year, and not the one that you're thinking of. Luton, leave me alone! But this journey from the depths to the top flight was so dramatic, it's actually more similar to Aguero than Luton Town. I feel like that was a pretty good rendition. Heidenheim, a Dorf club, or village club as they're called, started the 2007 season in what is now the 5th tier of Germany and just earned promotion to the Bundesliga, unlike Luton, for the first time in their history. Fun fact, Luton has also not been in the Bundesliga. I'll see myself out. You see, it was in that year in 2007 that something really significant changed for the club. They hired their former captain, Frank Schmidt, almost immediately after he hung up his boots. He was born right here, in a town you might notice is also called Heidenheim. What a coincidence. And he made 112 appearances at the end of his career for his hometown club before he retired in 2007. The year he retired was a pivotal year for his club for a lot of reasons, and not just because they lost his fabulous forehead. Look, takes one to know one. You know what I'm saying? The biggest one initially was because the club itself actually finally split off from its parent club. You see, Heidenheimer SB had existed since 1972, and it was a massive sports club in Heidenheim that was formed after the two big sports clubs in Heidenheim actually merged together. It had 27 departments, like one for gymnastics, one for swimming, and also just happened to be one for soccer. Now, those original sporting clubs actually dated back to 1846 when they started with gymnastics, and the soccer branch, the footballing team, started in 1911. Fast forward almost 100 years later to 2007, and FC Heidenheim's breaking away specifically so that it can adhere to the economic regulations that are applied to all professional clubs by the German Football Association. It was a move that allowed them to progress, and progress they did. See, when Frank Schmidt was on the team in 2004, Heidenheimer SB, soon to be FC Heidenheim, gained promotion from what was then the 5th tier of Germany to the 4th tier of Germany, known by its short form name, the Oberliga Baden-Württemberg. Then Schmidt retired in 2007, and at the start of the 2007 season, after becoming FC Heidenheim, the club fired Dieter Markel, who was the coach at the time. They called Frank Schmidt back up to coach his, obviously, first coaching job since he retired just a few months earlier, and the rest, they say, is history. Oh, hold on. No, there's a lot of cool things between now and then. He took the helm, steadied the ship, and engineered a 4th place finish ahead of Hoffenheim's reserve team thanks to a crushing win on the final day, 5-0 over Schwebelingen. Ugh, German. That 4th place finish grabbed them promotion up to the 4th division. Wait, I know what you're thinking. Weren't they already in the 4th division? Yes and no. You see, the Dreiliga, the 3rd Bundesliga, was formed in 2008, which means that in order to stay in what would become the 4th division, you had to get promoted from the old 4th division, and only the top 4 teams in this league of 18 teams would get promoted to the new 4th division. So Heidenheim had the wonderful distinction of getting promoted from the old 4th division to the new 4th division, which meant they still had to climb the same number of steps. So I'm counting that in my mind as getting promoted from the 5th division, or you can call it the 4.5 division, or the 4th division twice. Regardless, they still climbed 5 divisions in less than 20 years, and if you really care about the difference between those two that much, why? The following season in the 4th division, the Regionalliga Süd, Heidenheim under Schmidt started to actually look like the miracle that they would become. They were 6th in the table after 19 matches, in a league that only plays 34 matches, and in a league that only promotes the championship team. They then went on an absolutely stupendous run, winning 13 of their final 15 games to steal the title from Hessen Kessel. You had to win the league, and they did it. And to give you an idea of how important that amazing run could have been to Heidenheim's burst to the Bundesliga, Hessen Kessel is still in the Regionalliga Süd. Well, it's the Regionalliga Südwest now, but they're still at the same level. They haven't moved this whole time that Heidenheim's kept going up. And they missed by a point. And after 2 promotions in 2 seasons under coach Schmidt, Heidenheim was now in the 3rd division, just 2 steps away from the Bundesliga. And of course, this was a step up into a much more difficult division, the first completely national division in Germany, and it didn't faze Heidenheim at all. In their first season, they finished just 5 points off of the promotion playoff and less than 10 points off of automatic promotion itself. A second-year slump knocked them down to 9th in the following season, which, it's worth mentioning, is still the top half of the freaking league. And then Heidenheim started doing what it will make a habit of doing over the course of the rest of the story. It got really freaking close to getting promoted, but couldn't quite pull it off. In its 3rd year in the 3rd division, it finished just 1 point out of the playoff in 4th. Despite a late charge with a couple of wins to end the season, a club called Jan Regensburg pulled off a draw on the final match day to inch ahead of Heidenheim into the playoff position. Now, they would go on to get promoted, and we are not done with them. They will come back later. The following season's group table had a 5-team grand shuffle at the top that Heidenheim somehow ended up on the bottom of. Now, Heidenheim didn't lose a match this season after February 16th, but because it drew on the final day to Offenbach, it bottled the opportunity to be in the playoff. But the disappointment didn't last, as Frank Schmidt seems to always be able to do. He got his boys ready to play after massive disappointment, and they ripped off a spectacular season. From match day 7 onward for the entirety of the 2013-14 season in the 3rd division of Germany, the league was led by one team, Heidenheim. But because of their Heidenheim, they made it spicy, and they did try to bottle it. You see, in the 3 matches leading up to the final match of the season, they got just 1 point. This meant they were tied on points with a little-known club called RB Leipzig. That's right, they were down in the 3rd division at this time too, but they got like $1 billion and went straight up after Heidenheim. So on the final match day, Heidenheim and RB Leipzig were tied at a massive 76 points, and Heidenheim had a 3-goal difference advantage. Essentially, win the match, and you're probably going to win the league. And on this final day, the nerves were calmed early. Florian Niederlechner scored in the 19th minute, a name that you might recognize. The guy's a star striker in the Bundesliga now. He was assisted by Mark Schnatterer, who rounded out a wonderful 13-goal, 12-assist performance for the season. Smail Morabit scored in the 31st minute, and at this point, RB Leipzig was out of reach. They won their match by a couple of goals, but it wasn't enough, and Heidenheim took home a league title over a very good team. And that's when Heidenheim would finally face its greatest test, the churning, murky waters of a big-time 2nd division, the Bundesliga 2. Just 1 division below, obviously, the Bundesliga. Their first 4 years fluctuated between 42 and 46 points, at one point teetering just 2 points away from a relegation playoff and never really threatening for promotion positions. But then Frank Schmidt does what Frank Schmidt does. Heidenheim exploded for 55 points, and when the dust settled, they ended up just 2 points away from the promotion playoff to the freaking Bundesliga. They were one of just 4 teams in the league with a goal difference of at least +10, evidence that they had finally adapted to the huge change in competitive level. But their league performances didn't steal the headlines. Their cup performances did. You see, Heidenheim upset Bayer Leverkusen in the DFB Pokal round of 16, 2-1, setting up a quarterfinal at Bayern Munich. Oh, super awesome, great experience, dude. They had the lead at halftime. You might actually remember this match, you just didn't remember it was Heidenheim, because this was one of the craziest matches of the season anywhere in the world. Bayern took the lead before Robert Glatzel and then that same Mark Schnatterer from earlier in the 3rd division scored 2 goals to put Heidenheim up 2-1 at halftime. But then they brought in Lewandowski at halftime and scored 3 goals to take a 4-2 lead, and then Heidenheim tied them again. Robert Glatzel scored 2 goals to round out his hat trick, and Bayern was on mega upset watch from a club that was hanging out in what is now the 6th division like a decade ago. But then Lewandowski does what he does and scored in the 84th minute to win 5-4. And with that momentum in their sails, the following season, Heidenheim did one better. On the second to last match day of the year against one of the biggest clubs in Germany, Hamburger SV, Heidenheim pulled off the upset to put themselves ahead of Hamburger SV going into the final match day, where Heidenheim lost. but so did Hamburg. This meant that Heidenheim would play the 16th place team from the Bundesliga for a spot in the Bundesliga next season. The matchup was Heidenheim against Werder Bremen, and the first leg, played in July because of the pandemic, was 0-0. The second leg started with a Werder Bremen own goal in the 3rd minute to give them the lead, but that's when, well, they pulled it back. My boy Kleindienst scored in the 85th minute to draw level at 1-1, only for stoppage time to break their hearts. A 94th minute goal from Augustinsson. Except it wasn't over, because Kleindienst scored in the 97th minute, 7 minutes into stoppage time. But it didn't matter. Even though the stadiums were empty because of the pandemic, away goals rules were still in effect, and Werder Bremen stayed in the Bundesliga because of away goals in an empty stadium. Heidenheim, the plucky team that 20 years ago was in what is now the 6th division, was denied a trip to Germany's biggest stage. Cruelly, unjustly, how dare ye! Or something. The following 2 seasons were upper table finishes in the conversation, but nothing resembling the near miss of 2020. That was until this year. While Luton Town's achievements were gaining steam in the championship, Heidenheim was doing the same, hanging around the promotion picture, albeit a little quieter. They spent most of the middle of the season in 3rd place, which is the playoff spot. And as the season came to a close, 3 teams separated themselves. Heidenheim, their old foe Hamburger SV, and Darmstadt. With 1 match to go, Darmstadt clinched automatic promotion, and that left Heidenheim on 64 points and Hamburger SV on 63 points, battling for the other automatic spot. And that setup produced a final day beyond Heidenheim's wildest dreams. It didn't start well. Hamburger SV scored immediately in their match away to Sandhausen to take a 1-0 lead and move up to 66 points. Even with a draw, Heidenheim was sitting on 65, meaning they'd be bound for another playoff. News was starting to reach the massive Hamburg fan base that, well, Heidenheim didn't look that good. Heidenheim's opponent in this all-important final match, our old friends Jan Regensburg. I told you they were going to come back. And Jan Regensburg scored 2 goals in a 5-minute stretch in the second half to put them up 2-0 over Heidenheim, making it look like Hamburger was destined for the Bundesliga. As long as they maintained their lead and Jan Regensburg didn't blow a 2-0 advantage, Hamburger was fine. But you know by now, that's not what happened. An own goal from Jan Regensburg 2 minutes later provided a jolt of life for Heidenheim that they couldn't quite capitalize on. And as the final whistle blew for Hamburger SV against Sandhausen, their fans stormed the field, even though they were on the road, because they knew that the score was 2-1 Jan Regensburg, and the only thing that would keep them from automatic promotion would be 2 goals from Heidenheim. And then in the 93rd minute, Heidenheim was given a penalty. Jan Nicholas Beste stepped up, and he tucked it inside the post with pace just past the fingertips of the goalkeeper. Game on, 2-2. At this point, the fans in the field celebrating Hamburg's automatic promotion became tense. They turned to their phones, and even the stadium announcer at Sandhausen, who was providing updates. Then it happened. A cross, a goal, and a miracle. Complete. A hopeful ball skipped free to Tim Kleindienst, the heartbroken brace goal scorer in that playoff 3 years ago, who put away his easiest of 25 goals this year. And it wasn't just for automatic promotion. Darmstadt, apparently having celebrated too hard after getting that automatic promotion guarantee, got blown out 4-0. That meant this goal didn't just send Heidenheim up to the Bundesliga, it won them the league. Heidenheim won the league on goal difference in the 99th minute. 20 years ago, Heidenheim, under the leadership of defensive midfielder Frank Schmidt, got promoted from what is now the 6th division of Germany to the 5th. Now, it was going to the Bundesliga. Frank Schmidt was there for all of it, and now he's the longest tenured head coach in all of the German leagues, and he's only 49. The club's CEO, Holger Sandwald, said, "It's indescribable what kind of coach we have. We couldn't have done it without him. I offer him a statue, he doesn't want it. I offer him a contract till retirement, he doesn't want it." That's Frank. Now, in Schmidt's defense, he did say he doesn't want the statue because at some point someone will pee on it, and I don't want that. Very practical approach there. Regardless of his stance on statues, Frank Schmidt and his club and his town will be in the Bundesliga for the first time next season. And they'll try to do what they've always done, defy the odds. But this time, the eyes of the world will be upon them, and what a moment it was to watch them get there. Luton and Heidenheim for the neutrals next season. I'll see them both in Europe. If you want any of the sources that we used to research this video, as well as the AP story that those quotes came from at the end, all of them are listed down in the description. Do check them out if you want to read about this more, or just go clicking through old German lower league tables. By all means. If you enjoyed the video, please do subscribe, of course, and if you want to keep binge watching videos, this is a video about a club, also in Germany, that has all of its tickets on sale for free. That's not like a tease or anything. They are free.